We're back at Capital Casino playing in the 1-3 game. This week's going to be a little bit different. I'm going to cover a couple days that I played. Mostly with short sessions, and I gathered the best hands from those days. Day 1, buy in for $500. Sit down, and here we go. Been basically card at an active game for the last 30, 40 minutes or so. Look down at King Jack suited from the +1 position, open to raise 15. I do get a few callers, so we go 4 ways to a flop that comes out 8-6-4 rainbow. Pretty much given up. I check it. It does get checked around. Turn card comes as a queen of clubs. Good card for my range. I could have something like king queen or ace queen here. I do have a flush draw, of course. I decided to bet $40 into the $60 pot, hoping to just take it down right here. Player to my direct left is rather sticky. He doesn't like to give up on anything. So after some thought, he decides he's going to be making the call. The other players don't take too long before folding, so it's just going to be the two of us going to a river card, looking for a club. Instead, we get the ace of spades. I don't think my opponent has an ace in his hand, and I am highly likely to have one in mine. I could have ace queen here. So I miss my flush. I'm not going to win this thing with king high. At least I don't think I will. So I'm going to put out a little bluff here. And knowing how sticky he is, I decided to make it a big bluff. So I bet over pot. And he thinks for quite some time, saying that he thinks I probably have ace queen and that he can't beat it. And after some thought, he lets it go. Well, I don't want to ruin day 1 for you, but let's just say after this hand was my high water mark. Here I have ace king, and I'm in the low jack, open for a standard raise of 15. The sticky player next to me puts in the call, and then a fairly conservative player puts in a raise to $55. He has a very short stack, a little less than $200. One of the problems is I think he has a very, very tight range here. Jacks plus and ace king. Basically, that's about all he has in his range. But since he has a short stack, I'm probably going to be forced to at least call. But when the player to his left decides to make the call for 55 more, all that dead money, I think I just have to put in a pretty good size squeeze here. Try to get heads up with the short stack and take my chances. And that's what happens. I raise to 255. Player to my left folds. The short stack calls quickly and the other one gets out of the way. He asked me if I have aces, and you know that always means that they have kings. I say I don't. Asked him what he has, and anyway, he shows his kings, and I say, you're good. So after this hand, I was a little bit stuck, but the game was still good. I have a guy made a $14 straddle. It's folded to me. I'm in the cutoff. I got ace-8 suited. Definitely worth a raise. I make it 40. He comes back and puts in the call. So, yeah, he was walking around after he made it 14, and they had to be called back to the table. Well, that's okay. I kind of won his action. He puts in the call, and just the two of us are going to see this flop with $84 in the center. Flop comes out not great. It comes 5-4 deuce with 2 spades. He checks it over to me, and I'm just going to check this one back. Ace high might be good, but I'm not going to bloat this pot any more than it is. He is highly likely to be bluffing if he doesn't turn anything. Anyway, he gets a recap on the action and then decides to bet $30 when the 4 clubs comes on the turn. I think I'm still ahead of a lot of his flushes, some of his straight draws. If he has a 4, he has a 4. I put in the call, and we see a river card of an 8 of diamonds. It's a pretty good card for me. The best card would have been a 3, of course. I make a straight. Ace would have been tainted if he had a 3 in his hand. 8 looks pretty good unless he has like 6, 7 in his hand. But this guy's been really, really wild. And now he decides to bet $100. And I'll tell you right now, I don't like it. But as crazy as this guy's played, I don't know if I can fold an 8 in this spot. He has shown several bluffs and has made several very questionable plays. So I say, you got it, you got it. And I put in the call, and he sure enough shows ace-3 for a flopped bicycle. So I add $500 to my stack, and here we pick up a pair of queens from under the gun, do a standard raise, $15, player on my left puts in the call like he always does, and so does the big blind. So we go 3 ways to a flop. That comes ace, king, deuce. Well, if you have queens, it always comes an ace. But here, it comes ace, king. I still do a c-bet because I think this guy's going to be calling fairly light. Turn card is a 7 of clubs. I got enough flush draw, and I think his most likely hand is some sort of weak king. So I'm just going to go ahead and bet this like I have at least of ace, and he releases his hand. I'm pretty sure he had a king in this spot. Well, this is definitely the hand of the day. It's been a rough day so far. Here I'm in the hijack with 8-6 suited. After several limpers, I decided to put in a raise to $15. It's just to build a pot in position against a bunch of other players. Hopefully I can flop something here and, win a nice size pot. Anyway, we get a bunch of callers for our $15 raise, and there's over $100 in the pot when the flop comes out. Ace 7-5 with 1 diamond. So I flop an open ender, I got a backdoor flush draw, and I got positioned. Everyone checks to me. I'd continue for $30, just trying to build a pot. Hopefully I can pick up something like a backdoor flush draw, and if I'm really lucky, I can make a straight. I do get a couple callers, and so the pot is continuing to grow. $256 in the center, and we get the beautiful 9 of clubs. Can't ask for much more than that, besides a 9 of diamonds perhaps. Let's check to the player at the end of the table, who is a very competent player I play against quite frequently and is kind of a friend of mine. He does lead out for $125. Now, the range I put him on is he could possibly have the same straight I do, which is kind of unlikely. He could have maybe had something like ace 9 and made 2 pair, or he could have something like an ace and now a flush draw. Anyway, I just put in the smooth call looking to get the chips in on the river. And then we get the ace of spades on the end. Oh, I hate this. If he had ace 9, he now filled up. If he flops some sort of small set, he definitely has a full house. And if he has like a different 2 pair like 9-7, I'm not going to get paid off from him. The only hand I'm going to get paid off is if he has the hand like ace 6 of clubs or ace 8 of clubs. He does end up checking. I decided on a small bet targeting those ace suited hands. He puts in a quick call. I tell him I have a straight, and he shows me the same hand. So even when I win, I don't really win. I was a little frustrated with the day, so I decided to pack it up and head on home. Come back the following day, see if we can do a little better. Day 2, I'm sitting at a very active table. I look down at ace jack. It's the second hand off the deck for me, and there are a couple limpers. I'm just going to put in a standard raise here for $20. I get a bunch of callers. In fact, I got 4 of them, so we're going to go 5 ways to a flop. With $104 in the center, flop comes out ace, queen, 3, rainbow. Pretty good flop for ace jack. I figure someone had ace queen, I might know about it. Only thing I'm really worried about is someone having ace 3 or pocket 3s. It's checked over to me. I'm definitely going to be putting some chips in the pot here. This is a pretty active table, so there are going to be some loose calls. So I make it $60. It gets folded around to the player in the +1 position, who is like directly in front of our camera frame. He decides to make the call for the $60. Now, I don't know if it ever happens to you, but you can kind of sense that like maybe someone's going to be trying to make a move on you. That's the feeling I get right here when we see the 6 of hearts on the turn. He doesn't think too long before announcing a bet for $150. So what kind of hands could he have that's beating me? Well, he could have pocket 3s, of course, which I don't think he does. He could have something like ace 6, maybe ace 3 and didn't raise on the flop. But most likely, I think he's just doing this with a random ace or maybe even a random queen and is just trying to see where I'm at. Well, I decided to tell him where I was at by jamming all in. It's a little bit aggressive, but I wanted to send a message that I am not to be fooled with today, that I am ready to play. And I'm ready to play for all my chips. He tanks for a very long time, saying that I must have a set of queens, or at least ace queen here. And he eventually finds the fold, and we win our first pot of the day on the first hand that we play. Well, after this hand, I went for a long period of time and not hitting anything on the flop until I find ace 10 suited from under the gun. I open for a raise to $15. I get called in 3 spots. Headed off to a flop with $63 in the center, and we get a good flop. It comes 10 high with 1 spade. It's checked over to me, and I went to grab some chips, and I knocked over my camera, so I just checked instead, set my camera back up, and it gets checked around. Luckily for us, the turn card is the perfect card. It is the ace of hearts. It does put up a possible flush draw there, and also makes queen jack a double gutter. I bet for $40, and I was surprised at the number of callers I got. I got 4 callers. Wow, that's really good. Figure one of them has a flush draw. Gotta be careful for that. The river card comes as a 2 of clubs. Looks like a great card until the small blind now leads out for $100. You can't really put someone with a bare deuce unless it's exactly the 2 of hearts and he has some sort of flush draw. And since he's in the blind, that's the most likely deuce he would have. Let's face it, if he has 2 pair, he probably would have raised on the turn. So he either has a deuce, like the 2 of hearts, and I don't think I'm going to be folding to that, of course. I was going to make a bigger bet, but since he bet in front of me, I'm just going to put in the call. So I stick in the $100, and of course my chips fall over as I was doing it. I'm a very clumsy player today. The other players fold out. He shows ace queen, and I show the ace 10 and take this one down. The very next hand, a player limps in from under the gun. Player on the button, who is the one who just lost with the ace queen, raises to $20 on the button. I look down at 2 kings. Normally this is an insta 3-bet, of course, but he has a very short stack, $160-ish. And the player who limped in has a much larger stack, and I kind of want to get involved with him, so I just flat, and he does too. So the 3 of us are going to see a flop with 61 in. That comes 8-8-6 with 2 hearts. I check it. It ends up getting checked around. So I feel pretty good about my hand until the 10 of hearts comes up. I take a peek to see if I have a king of hearts. I know I have a red one, but it is not the king of hearts. The player who limped in now bets $26. Player on the button puts in the smooth call. 2 kings are definitely way too strong to be folding, and I don't think it's worth a check raise at this point, so I just put in the call. And we get to see a river card that comes basically a complete blank of a 4 of spades. Shouldn't change anything unless someone has 5-7 of some sort. I check it. Player bets for $35. Seems like he is making some sort of blocker bet, maybe with a weak 10, trying to stop someone to bet bigger. The player on the button looked like he wanted to raise, and then he put in the call. So I'm a little suspicious that he has something good here. I go ahead and make the crying call. Player who was betting all the way shows a 10. I show my kings, and the other player who raised showed 8-3 offsuit. Guess he was a little bit steaming. For the final hand of day 2, I look down at 2 8s in the cutoff, make a raise after one player limps in, end up getting 2 callers. So 3 of us are going to see a flop. And what a flop it is. It comes out 8-5 deuce with 2 hearts. I love the flop with an 8. 2 hearts. Someone could have a straight draw. Someone can have a flush draw. It's checked to me. I bet $20. I get a quick call from the player in the center of the table, and we see a ace of clubs on the turn. He checks it over. I kind of like that card. If he had an ace high flush draw, he now has top pair with it. Of course, he could have 3-4, which would be a trouble, but I don't think this player's playing 3-4. So I bet again, this time for $60. He puts in another quick call. I'm pretty sure that he has at least a flush draw at this point, and we get a queen of clubs on the river. Trying to debate on what sizing to use. If he has a ace-high flush draw, I think he's going to call just about anything. So I make a big size bet. He makes a quick fold with ace-4 of hearts. So he had a ton of outs, didn't get there, and made a good laydown on the river. That was the end of day 2, but don't worry, I got a couple bonus hands that you are going to enjoy. Here I am in the low jack in a very active game with 8-7 of hearts. There's a $6 straddle. One player limped. I make it 30. I get a call from the player in the small blind, who's a good friend of mine, but we always like to play against each other, and he definitely wanted to see this one on the vlog, so here it is. Heads up, flop comes out, Jack 9-5 rainbow. I do have a double gutter. A 10 or 6 will make me a straight, plus a backdoor flush draw. He checked it over to me. This hits his range pretty hard, but I got a lot of equity, so I bet 40. He puts in the quick call. Turn card comes as the perfect 6 of clubs. It does put up a backdoor flush draw, so I guess it's not perfect, but he checks it over to me. I'm going to put another half-size pot bet out here. I make it $80. If he has 2 pair or better, I figured he would definitely put in a check raise here and jam with his chips. Knowing that, I don't think I can fold this hand for any card, even if it's a club. So when the river card comes is a jack of spades, and he leads out for $120. I know he doesn't have a full house, so I just jam all in for additional $160. He's a little suspicious of my play because he's representing a jack, which is definitely more in his range than mine. What could I possibly have? Maybe he has a 9 and he doesn't put me on pocket 9s, and he doesn't put me on a jack. But after some thought, he decides to let it go. I tell him it was a good lay down, and that I had him. This next hand is from a player who is a very talented Canadian player who comes to Sacramento every once in a while to give us action. He recently played over at the Thunder Valley tournaments, where he won a tournament, came in second in the tournament, and final table a third. So he definitely knows what he's doing, and he's just having some fun playing in the 1-3 game. He has the $6 straddle on this particular hand. There is a limp in front of me, and with 7-6 suited, it's kind of questionable playing this hand, but the players and the game has been very, very soft and lots of action going on. And I don't mind trying to get it in here for $6 in a multi-way pot when the stacks are as deep as they are. So I limp, and so do 4 other players. And it comes back around to our friend from Canada, and he decides to squeeze it up to $40. Well, he has a pretty good sized stack, and so do the other players that limped in, so I am not going anywhere. If he made it something like $70, I would definitely let this one go. But for $40, I think I'm getting the right price to speculate with a 7-6 suited. We do end up going 5 ways to the flop for $40 a piece. And we get a flop that comes 9-7-6 with 2 hearts. Great flop for our hand. This is the things we were looking for. Let's check to our Canadian friend who is going into the tank. It seems like he has an overpair at this point and is trying to decide what's the best course of action. He decides to do a pot size bet of $200. I usually will check this kind of flop with an overpair with that many players, just because of this reason. I jam all in with my bottom 2 pair. It's folded to the player in seat 1, and he kind of plays a little bit face up, and I can tell that he has some sort of flush draw here and is trying to determine whether he's going to go with it or not. After several minutes of thinking, he finally decides to let it go. Once he makes a fold, it doesn't take much for the other 2 players to get out of the way. They don't have anything, which is a good thing because I don't want to make this multi-way. He says, I'm going to have to call you, Doug, and he puts the money in. I tell him I have 2 pair. He says they're good, and I show my hand, and we take it down. He later told me that he had pocket aces with the ace of hearts. So he had a lot of equity, even though we had the best hand. We spoke briefly about the hand, and he said that with all the possible draws out there, I could have been doing the same thing with, say, the 9-8 of hearts, or maybe an overpair such as pocket 10s or jacks that I did not re-raise with. And given the perceived range that he had of me, that he had a call with the 2 aces, I don't blame him for the move he made. I think I would have checked the flop though. Thanks for watching, guys. I really do appreciate your support. If you haven't hit the like or subscribe button, please do so. It really does help out the channel. And if you can just take a moment to do that, I really appreciate it. Day one was kind of a grind, and I didn't run well, and I couldn't really get anything going, except the bluff or two I made. End up losing $200. You know, sometimes you just have to pack it in and come back a different day. Day two, much better results. Couple key hands went my way. Ended up winning 565. And of course, day three included those two bonus hands, which were basically where all the action was on that particular day. I want to also thank my Canadian friend for being such a good sport when I made that hand and telling me what his hand was and discussing it with me. If you're really interested in knowing who he is, the only thing you have to do is check the Thunder Valley poker results for their lately tournament. Just look for someone who came in first and second place. And our monthly goal and yearly goal updates are here to see. As you can see, we're making steady progress toward our year-end goal, which is to make as much effing money as we can. So until next time, good luck at the tables, and we'll see you back here soon.